Okay. Welcome everyone to the session entitled Internationally Trained Professionals, How International Career Transition Programming Builds Belonging, Skills, and Workforce Connections. My name is Christina Parente, Director at the Wisconsin Technical College System. The session is being recorded and we'll also have time for questions and answers at the time. This is at the end of the session. This is a quick one, but I'm really excited and know that there's going to be so much valuable information. Resources and recordings will be available at the WTCS Faculty Summit site within the next week. You'll receive an email when the resources are available. So again, we're very excited to host the third WTCS Faculty Summit. Please share your questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. At the end of the session, I'll be putting a link to an exit ticket in the chat, asking for brief feedback on the session and encouraging you to share one action step you want to take based on the information that's shared. But without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our presenter, Lindsay Ryan.
Hi, everyone. I am going to share my screen and get this started here. All right. All right, Christina, just checking that you can see everything.
I can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is Lindsay Ryan, and I am a navigator at Waukesha County Technical College. I coordinate the integrated education and training programs, which are basically, if you're unfamiliar with what that is, they're high support certificates for students, mostly from our adult education programs. They are learning workforce skills and enrolled in technical credit courses, but they're also receiving a lot of English language support and reading, writing, math support as they do these certificates. I also have taught in our English as a second language program and have been involved with our ESL program in some way or the other for the last almost 10 years now. So for today's session, I am hoping that you leave here today knowing the strengths that internationally trained professionals offer technical colleges and the labor market. You'll learn a bit about some of the barriers that they face, and then we'll talk about some strategies that can help with those barriers. So I will just ask you to put a quick thing in the chat, just gauging everyone's background knowledge on internationally trained professionals. So if this is the first time you're ever hearing internationally trained professionals, I'll have you put a 1 in the chat. And if you're very, very familiar with the world of internationally trained professionals, put a 5. And if you're in between, somewhere around there. So yeah, go ahead and just put your information in the chat so we can get a sense of who's in the audience. Okay. All right, wonderful. Okay, so we're kind of all across the board here. Okay. So let's start with just some basics. So the definition of an internationally trained professional. That is someone who has a post-secondary degree or a professional credential that was obtained outside of the United States. And typically, I'll use the acronym ITP just to make it a little bit easier on myself. But ITPs that I work with, English is not their first language. So everyone enrolled in my course, English is not their first language. So working in the ESL program for years, we've heard stories from students that start English classes and they say, well, I'm actually a doctor in my country, I'm an engineer, I'm an architect, I'm a lawyer, and right now I'm working as an Uber driver or working at a factory or in a restaurant in kind of a survival type role, and they want to do something to get out of that position and use some of the skills and education that they've obtained over many years in their country. So we had all of this narrative and stories from our students. And when I looked at the statistics on the education levels in our students, we found that the learners that were enrolled in our ESL program, 47% of those learners had some post-secondary education outside of the United States. So that could mean that maybe they started college, they didn't graduate, or they had a bachelor's degree, an associate degree, technical diploma, some sort of post-secondary education. And those numbers were even higher for the students that were enrolled in our certificate programs, the IET programs, 54%. And then we dug a little deeper and we found that actually 34% of the students in our IET program already had a bachelor's degree or higher. So they were not entering IETs in order to earn their first degree. They were doing it for other reasons. And that's really when we said, let's create a course and a program that helps this population of students. So we wanted to create a course that was strategic, and students walked out of there knowing exactly what steps they were going to take to go from their survivor jobs to a job within their field, within their industry. At the same time, we wanted to be very strategic about incorporating workforce development and local labor market needs, because we wanted there to be a matchup. You know, we didn't want this to be, yeah, let's go ahead, become a doctor again. We wanted it to be really realistic for our students and for employers in the community. So just some information about ITPs in the workforce. When I was talking with employers that were involved with our certificate programs in healthcare, manufacturing, and education, we were hearing that there are still gaps in their companies, in their workforce. And they were not necessarily hiring those entry-level positions. They wanted someone with a little bit more experience, with technical skills, someone they didn't have to train as much on the job. And when we thought about our ITPs, we thought this could be a really good connection point. It's a way for ITPs to get into the industry, use their skill set, but then continue to grow. Maybe they're not at the same position that they once had in their country, but they're still able to use their skills in education. And we know that ITPs bring new ideas, processes, technology to the job, and immigrants in general are much more likely to start new businesses than native-born Americans. I believe there was a study that came out in 2022 that found that immigrants were 80% more likely to start businesses. So we know that they are also creating jobs. And they are multilingual. You know, we say we still use English as a second language, but realistically for our students, it can be a third or fourth language that they're learning. And they have global experience and international connections. So the students that enrolled in my class, this is the second time that I've run the International Career Transition course. And these are the students that are currently enrolled in my class. These are the careers that they had outside of the United States. You'll see there are a lot of engineers, there's doctors, there's architects, there's math professors, teachers, there's finance analysts. So they come from a wide background of careers. And sometimes when I'm sitting in the classroom, I'm thinking, I can't believe how much experience and knowledge and talent is sitting just in one classroom. And it's kind of a cool feeling when you think about it. So now I want you to just think about your education and your experience. How long did it take you to get to the place where you are now? How many years of education? How many skills have you acquired along that journey? And think about that all going away just because you're in a different location. Now, none of that counts. So all of those years, all of those credentials, all of the hard work you put in, it's gone. And so that's the feeling that students have when they enter into the classroom. They feel a little defeated, unsure about what their next steps are, but none of them ever complain. They're always willing to put in the work to start over, to build their new skill set here in the United States. But it's just something to keep, I always keep this in mind when I'm working with ITPs. So these are some of the barriers that ITPs face. There are many barriers. There are macro level barriers, and there are barriers that we will discuss today. I'm going to focus on the ones that we can tackle within the classroom, within the technical college system. So credential recognition, career pathways, English proficiency, cultural understanding, professional networks. The first one, probably the biggest one, is unrecognized credentials. So when students come into the classroom, many of them don't really understand the education and career pathways that it takes to become that profession in the United States. So they understand what they had to do to become a doctor or a lawyer in their country, but they're not always clear on the steps that it takes to become a doctor or a lawyer or an architect in the United States. So we spend a lot of time in the class researching their careers. We do a lot of career exploration. And one thing I learned that I don't do anymore is that I never assume that just because someone had that career in their country, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to continue with that career in the United States. So there's a lot of engineers in my class, and the engineering licensing process is very long and arduous. So we take a long look at what it means to become relicensed as an engineer in the United States. And then we also look at adjacent careers or alternative careers that use that same skill set, but maybe in a different way. So some of my engineers are thinking about project management or like process efficiency, different things that they wouldn't have to become relicensed for. But I always want them to have that basic knowledge of how their education compares to the education in the United States. And so all of our students do one-on-one advising. I sit down with them one-on-one to talk about their goals. And we also bring in a career specialist from our Career Connections department who meets with them one-on-one. And then together we kind of all create a plan of action. We also have educational evaluations, and we were able to build in grant money to help pay for educational evaluations. And educational evaluations are essentially companies that look at the degree, the diploma, the course, and the institution that an ITP went to and did, and they put it in terms of the American education system. And then ITPs can have this educational evaluation and bring it to a university, a college, a employer, and those American employers or education institutions understand exactly what that means. So Educational evaluations, I tell my students, are a tool in the toolbox. Sometimes they get a little excited and they think this is going to solve all of my problems. All I need is an educational evaluation, and then I'll be able to do all of this. And I have not found that to be the case. It is very helpful when you know exactly how you're going to use it, but it is a tool in the toolbox. It doesn't solve all the problems. But we also explore other ways that they can get recognized for the work they've already done within technical college. So we offer credit for prior learning for certain courses. We also see that it does make a difference when an ITP has a local credential. So that doesn't mean repeating the education that they already have, but it could mean upskilling or specializing or getting like an up-to-date certificate in a specific industry area. And employers recognize technical college system names, and they just have a better understanding of what that means if someone has a certification locally rather than in another country. So we explore that as an option as well for students. Another barrier that students face is English proficiency. And we do some professional English development in the course, but most of the students that enter this class already have an advanced level of English. And what we really work on building is their confidence. And sometimes students will use their English as an excuse to not move forward in their careers. So we kind of talk about the concept of you have this level of English. It is possible that you never reach the exact level of fluency that you want, but what can you do with the English that you have right now? And a lot of our students are like, well, I'm going to just take ESL more. I'm going to go back to English classes. And that is great, but it doesn't give them that technical language that they need to be successful in their career fields. So we do explore ideas of IETs where they can build their language in the industry that they want to work in. And then we also talk about your English proficiency will grow when you are working in that industry. So we try to really build that like confidence in saying, yes, this is my current level of English, and yes, I can be successful and I can learn more on the job. Another area that we work on in this course is just kind of the logistics of finding a job, getting a job, and making sure that your resume, your cover letters, your LinkedIn, your elevator pitch is all current and it reflects not just your work experience here, but your work experience outside of the United States. And this is actually the easy part. And it feels good because it's really easy to be able to fix a resume. And sometimes I think when I started this class, I assumed that students would have a higher level of knowledge around these specifics, and they don't. So it is easy enough to teach how to create a resume that is crafted specifically for ITPs. And that might be a skill-based resume that focuses on skills and not so much on like maybe gaps in work experience. So this is an easy fix. So we do spend a lot of time on all of these concepts. Another huge barrier that ITPs face are a lack of a professional network. And in order to get students out and networking, we have done informational interviews. So networking is a hard concept for ITPs who are uncertain about their English. And also for me as an introvert, telling students, yeah, you got to go out and meet people. It is a difficult concept to tackle, but We've connected all of our ITPs with local professionals in their field. So they have the ability to find out more information about that industry in the United States. They make connections with professionals, and they always ask those professionals, do you know anyone else that you think it would be beneficial to talk to? So they slowly expand their network. And I've already communicated and talked with all of the people from the informational interview list, so they know what to expect from our students. And we have our students set up the appointments and schedule the times they're meeting with their informational interviewees. And then they send a follow-up thank you email. And then if their informational interviews or coffee chats go well, then we follow up with those professionals and say, you also could mentor this person after the class ends for several sessions. And once the local professionals have met with our students, they're much more willing to extend that rather than asking them for a whole mentorship time and commitment just at the very beginning. So that has worked really well for our students. And it also gives employers and local professionals new experiences and new perspectives on ITPs. And some of them have said, well, now I'm curious about the employees I have working for me if they have some of this international experience that might not be being utilized in their current roles. So it's just
Lindsay, sorry to interrupt, just a 4-minute warning.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So at first I didn't really see the connection between technical colleges and ITPs. And now I realize that this is a wonderful place for ITPs to learn and study, because we are wonderful at upskilling. We're wonderful at helping people pivot within their careers, and they're able to earn those local credentials. So if you have ITPs in your classroom, you might notice that they have a huge desire to put their skills and education to use. They have an understanding of what professionalism is, advanced technical skills, multilingual, international experience. So some of the key things I want you to take away from this is, if you do have ITPs in your classes, please value the education and experience that they bring to the classroom, and find out if you do have resources available for them within your college. So that might mean exploring IETs, career connections, credit for prior learning. All of those are wonderful resources. And I know that Christina and I will also be adding on more resources so that you guys can check out some more documents and information about international trained professionals. So that is all I have. Thank you. Does anyone have questions? I don't know. Christina, we have time for questions?
We do. We have a few minutes for questions. And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat in case somebody would love to reach out to you offline. And yes, come off mute, please, or add a question to the chat. We've got a few minutes. Thank you, Lindsay, for that. What I've noticed, Lindsay, is oh, here we've got one. Carla says, do you do TOEFL prep? Many licenses require students to take TOEFL before they can take industry tests.
We don't prep students on TOEFL. We have resources that we do send them if they need to take a TOEFL, but we don't specifically have like TOEFL workshops or anything.
And then Emily back here in the chat said, would you share what was included in the informational interview?
Yes. So students would talk to the local professionals about industry trends. They would ask them about their career pathways. They would ask them about what daily tasks they did within their role. they would ask them like how they got from one position to the next, and ask them about professional networks, professional licensing boards, different like very field specific information that we can't cover in a class with 14 different career pathways. So they were able to just get very specific information from people that were in their fields.
Yep. All right, that does bring us, unfortunately, to the end. So I'm going to share with you, first of all, thank you, Lindsay. Please keep an eye out on this for this recording and other resources that we're going to compile for ITPs. Just put a plug out there that we did just do a guide for working with ITP nurses. So very excited about that. And we're going to be working on other ones in the future as well. Here's the link to the Faculty Summit exit ticket. And thank you, Lindsay. I always appreciate learning about your programming. I'm a big fan. So thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Christina, and thank you, everyone.